Stay tuned to the end of this video to find out my specialty and the position that I accepted for my first nursing job. After applying for over 100 nursing jobs, I have finally secured my first nursing job! I'm so excited, you guys. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Alyssa. I just graduated, well, now in December from nursing school, and I have been taking you guys along in the process of finding my first nursing job, and I am so excited to be making this video and finally be sharing with you guys that I finally accepted my first nursing position. So I kind of wanted to talk about like the whole process and everything I went through to get this first nursing job, and it was a long one, okay? Like I said, I literally probably applied for over 100 jobs. I didn't count, but I applied for a lot. I did a lot of interviews. A little background on my nursing journey: I went to Sacramento City College and got my associate's degree of nursing, and I'm currently pursuing my bachelor's degree online through University of Phoenix. So I don't have my BSN yet, I only have my ADN, and that plays a major role in the job that I have today. So throughout my last semester of nursing school, I knew that this is kind of when you apply for new grad programs and new grad jobs, and my plan was to start in a nurse residency program. And basically what that is it's a program dedicated to new grads, and they give you a lot of extra classes like skills lab. It's basically like you're kind of transitioning from nursing school into your nursing job, which is what I wanted because I felt like this would be more comfortable for me as a new grad to transition from nursing school to being an actual nurse. So ideally this is what I wanted to do, and so I was looking at new grad programs in my area, and I knew that I wanted to work at the hospital that I had clinicals at. So I actually got a job as a patient transporter to get my foot in the door while I was still in nursing school. So I started working as a patient transporter. I was just working per diem, so I would work like once or twice a week, and honestly I thought that I would end up at this hospital for my first nursing job, and I knew that their application period opened in November, so I made sure to submit my application. And I knew that at this hospital it took months to hear back from them because I had just gotten the job as a patient transporter, and it took like literally probably 4 or 5 months to actually start the job. So it was a long process for sure, and even in the application it says like 3 to 5 months before you'll actually be hired into the program, and the start date was actually in March. So I applied in November. They had a March cohort and a May cohort, and so once I applied, I think I waited like a month and I didn't hear anything. So I went ahead and sent out emails to the units that I wanted to work for. I just went on their website and they have a list of like all the managers' emails. So I sent out those emails basically just introducing myself and saying that I submitted an application and I would really love to interview for your floor. I think I sent out like 4 or 5 of these emails to different units, and some of them I heard back from right away, others I never even heard back from. But 2 of the units that I actually wanted to interview for, one of them, I think they reached out to me like the next day. They basically said, hey, I'll look out for your application, and that was that. The other floor that I wanted to interview for, I actually had my preceptorship on, and she actually emailed me back and said, hey, we're actually not hiring on this floor for that cohort. And so I was like, well, that sucks. So basically I was kind of relying on the other floor that I had received an email from, and I was hoping that I would be able to start on that floor. And so the manager for that floor actually called me like a month later while I was at work, and luckily I answered the call, and she was like, hey, I saw your application, like I would love to set up an interview with you. When are you available? And so I gave her my dates, and I was literally freaking out this day after I received this call because I was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to interview for my first nursing job. Like, this is so scary. I was terrified. I was like in my head like shaking the rest of my shift. I could not focus on anything. Like, I literally was just looking up interview questions, interview answers, like interview tips, because I had my interview in 4 days. That was how soon we scheduled the interview. After that call was 4 days later, because that's like the only time she had available, I guess she, like, I was one of the last people she called, so her like slots were limited. So I was like, dope, I have 4 days to prepare for this interview. How am I gonna do this? And mind you, I was also working at this time, so whenever I had downtime at work, I would just research questions, like questions that they're gonna ask at the interview. I actually had clinicals on this floor as well, not my preceptorship, but just like my 4th semester clinicals. I actually found one of the nurses that I shadowed on that floor for clinicals, and I started asking him like, hey, do you remember any of the interview questions? And he kind of helps me out by giving me a bunch that they might ask and just kind of like talking about some scenarios that they might ask. And so I wrote all these down. I went home and I prepared my answers for all of these interview questions. And then actually the day of my interview, we had an NCLEX review to do through Hearst, through my school. So I went to that in the morning, and then I ended up leaving early so I could go home and get ready for my interview and prep for my interview. It was at 4 p.m. I actually called one of my friends on the way to my interview and practiced all the questions, and that was actually really helpful to like talk it out and made me feel a little bit more comfortable going into the interview, because I'm like in hopes that they would ask these questions. So basically I went into that interview and it was like an insane amount of questions. Like for a new grad, I was like, this is a lot. Like they had so many clinical scenarios. They had so many like basic interview questions, like tell me about yourself, strengths and weaknesses. I actually have the questions right here. Let me just read some of them. The first thing they asked me was to talk about my portfolio, which basically I brought to the interview. It was a folder with my resume, my certifications in it, my letters of recommendation. And so that was the first thing they asked, was to tell me about your portfolio. And why did my brain like blank? I was like, I did not prepare for this. Like I know it's on my resume, but I didn't know what they wanted me to say for that. So that was kind of hard. But anyways, more questions were like strengths and weaknesses. Another thing they said was tell me a story about your clinical experience, which I thought was a weird and like very vague question. I was like, I have like a lot of stories. I don't know exactly what they were looking for. I don't remember what I said, but yeah, anyways, during this interview, they were writing down pretty much everything that I was saying, and like they had a rubric. They were like checking if I met the standard or if I was below the standard for the question, and a couple of the times they marked below, and so that was very discouraging for me, and I was like, oh my god, I'm doing terrible on this interview, and it kind of like psyched me out. I was very nervous, but I felt like I was able to answer all of the questions, and even if I didn't know an answer, I was kind of able to come up with something. So anyways, after I left that interview, I honestly wasn't sure if I was gonna get the job or not, but I thought since I worked there and I also had clinicals on that floor, that would kind of make me stand out, so I was really hoping on that. But anyways, weeks went by and I never heard anything, and then finally when I was actually on vacation with my boyfriend in Kentucky, I received an email from the manager saying that I was not selected for the new grad program for her floor. I was a little bit devastated from this, but I was like, you know what, we're gonna keep going. We have other options. I have other programs to apply to, like it's fine. And so I applied to another program near me, and I was really hoping to get into this one. This was like my second choice, and so I applied to this. It was also a nurse residency program. I didn't end up getting in because they said like they prioritize their internal applicants, so basically people that already work there. And so I was like, well great, I can't work there and the other hospital that I was trying to get into, so I guess that's out. So after that I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go on Indeed and kind of see what I can find. And I also went on like LinkedIn, and I was just looking into all the specialties that I would possibly be interested in, but honestly I hadn't really made up my mind yet. Like I was really interested in ER. I was also interested in peds. I would also be interested in like PICU or like working on a trauma floor like the one I interviewed for. I also wouldn't really mind doing med surg, so I was kind of just applying to everything that I saw that was like within my area and had like reasonable pay. And most of these were not new grad programs though, because I had already applied to the new grad programs in my area. But I do regret not applying to all of them, because some of the application periods were actually my fourth semester of nursing school. So the only one that I applied to while I was in nursing school was the hospital that I actually worked for, and I regret not applying to all of the new grad programs that were in my area, because I really thought I was gonna get into the hospital that I worked at. So learn from me and just apply everywhere. Even if you think you're gonna get into somewhere, you never know what could happen. So definitely put your applications out everywhere to all the hospitals that you think you would want to work for. So anyways, I was literally just putting out so many jobs on Indeed. At this point I was already graduated for like 2 months, which doesn't sound like that long, but I was starting to feel discouraged because most of my friends were already accepted into a job and they had like a start date, and so I like kind of fell behind. I haven't even received a job offer. Like how many interviews am I gonna have to go through to actually get a job? But I just kept applying, and one of my friends actually told me to apply to the hospital that she got into, which was a children's hospital. And so I applied and I emailed the nurse manager. I had an interview with her and it went really well. Like this was still my favorite interview honestly to this date. Like they were so nice and just very conversational. They gave me feedback after like every question. I felt like they were actually listening to what I was saying rather than writing everything down. And I don't know, I just left this interview feeling really confident in myself that I would get this position. Plus like my friend already worked there and she referred me, so I thought that would look good. Anyways, so I was waiting for a long time to hear back from this manager as well, but finally she got back to me that she couldn't hire me because I didn't have my BSN and she was at her limit for hiring ADNs. Apparently they have like a ADN to BSN ratio and she can only hire hire so many ADNs. And so she was like, hey, like I would love to hire you once you have your BSN. And so I was like, cool. I'm not gonna have my BSN for like another year. So yeah, after I found that out, I was pretty devastated because I just kept getting rejection after rejection, and I felt like I was never gonna get hired anywhere, and it was very discouraging. After I got that rejection, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna apply to just hospitals within my state, honestly. Like, I don't even care if I have to relocate. I'm just gonna apply everywhere because at this point, I felt like I had applied to like every single job in my area and I was hearing nothing. So I just started putting my application out there for just hospitals in California. I got a few callbacks and scheduled interviews with them, and I actually ended up getting a job offer from a hospital that was 3 hours from me, and I was debating on taking this position, but it was a little intimidating for me because on their floor they have up to 5 patients, but they're in critical condition. So like some of them can be on ventilators and like trachs, and that just sounds very intense to me. Like it almost sounded like an ICU, but they have ratios like med surge. So I don't know. I was like, maybe not. Maybe not for a new grad. That sounds really scary for me. So I kind of kept looking, but like I told them, hey, can I let you know like in a week or so? And they said yes. So I kept applying, kept interviewing. I interviewed for the position that I actually accepted. And again, I felt like this was a very conversational interview. I felt like I was comfortable saying my answers, and the manager was very nice. And I love interviews that you can like talk back and forth. It's not just like me answering the question and then they move on to the next question. I love when they actually give you like a little bit of feedback or kind of say, yeah, like this and this, and then you would actually do this too, or like, you know, like kind of elaborate on my answer. It just makes me feel more comfortable, like I'm not the only one talking. So this is kind of how this interview was as well. This one was very short though. She only asked me like 4 or 5 questions and they were all relatively easy. Honestly, I think I got this job because I have my EKG certification, which not a lot of people have, but I actually got it to stand out in one of my nurse residency program applications, which I didn't end up getting, but it did help me for this job as well. So she's like, that looks really good that you had that certification, because a lot of nurses on this floor are not able to read rhythm strip, and since you're certified to do that, you're gonna be able to read them on the floor. And I'm like, cool, okay, I'm gonna need a refresher on this, but that's awesome that I got the certification because now I feel like I stand out a little bit. At the end of this interview, she literally told me, we really like you, we like your energy, we feel like you're gonna be a hard worker, and I forget what else she said, but basically she was like, I'm gonna tell my hiring manager that we really like you and want you to work on this floor, and she's gonna send you over an offer letter. And I was like, oh my god, really? I've never had them tell me that like at the actual interview. Usually if I get an offer, it'll be like days later they'll call me or like email. And so I was very excited that I received this job offer, and this is actually another hospital that is 3 hours from where I live. So I was kind of a little bit freaking out about like how I was gonna make this work, and I asked her like when the start date is gonna be, and she said April 22nd, which is now in 2.5 weeks, but I interviewed over 2 weeks ago, so it was at least a month's notice. So basically what I did is me and Alex went down to the hospital. We drove 3 hours to go down and see like the area of the hospital, because I've actually never been to this city before. I wanted to check it out before I like accept this offer of this hospital in an area that I've never been to. So we drove down there, and honestly I really love the area. It's honestly very pretty and green. I was honestly shocked at how nice this hospital is. Like I only saw the outside, but it looks like pretty new. They have a nice little like water fountain out front of it, but in general the area seemed relatively safe and nice. There was like not very many homeless people. It's like very clean, and I felt like it'd be a safe area for me to be by myself, because my plan is to drive up there and Airbnb for the 3 days that I work and then drive back home the 3 hours. So I would drive 3 hours there, stay the night 3 nights, and then drive home. We're gonna see how this goes, and if I end up liking it out there, then we might just find an apartment out there. But I didn't want to like buy an apartment and commit to like a 1-year lease or something, just in case, because again, I've never been to this hospital, so I don't know how it's gonna be. Like I want to make sure that I actually like the job before we commit to moving there. So yeah, that's the tea on that. But the position that I got offered is an ER inpatient nurse. So basically I'm going to be working in the ER, but I'm going to have like more stable patients, not patients that just come into the hospital. I think after they've already been seen by an ER nurse, I think they come to me and I'm like the overflow area before the patient is getting sent up to the floor. At least that's what I like understood by the way she explained it. But I am working in the ER, so I'm very excited about that. That is one of the specialties that I was very interested in. And yeah, I'm just super excited to start this position, and I'm really hoping that this whole commuting thing works out, but we'll see. Obviously that wasn't ideal, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I kind of had to make a hard choice because I was like, okay, should I accept this position and start getting my experience as a nurse, even though it's 3 hours from where I live, and just commute? Or should I wait a couple months and apply to the hospital that I'm working at now as a transporter again into the new grad residency program again and try a second time? But then part of me is like, what if I don't get in the second time? Then I just wasted like so many months of, you know, still working as a transporter and not getting my experience as a nurse. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna go and accept this job offer. You know, if I don't end up liking it, then I can always try to find a job here, but I'm really hoping that I do like it, and it's in the ER, so I feel like I'm going to like it. But I'll definitely keep you guys updated, and I'll keep posting nursing related content. But yeah, if you're in this process of trying to find a job as a new grad, keep going, because you will find something. Like, just put your application out there. If you already applied to all the hospitals in your area, try to expand a little bit and apply for hospitals that are a little bit farther away if you're willing to relocate, or do what I'm doing and like Airbnb for the few days that I'm there. And I promise you, you will find a position. It might take a while. For me, it took a while. It took like 3 months. I graduated mid-December and it is now April 4th, and I'm just now starting my nursing job April 22nd. So that's 4 months. And this was a very stressful 4 months for me, okay? Because it's a lot of like waiting around. Like, yeah, I was still busy doing work and doing social media, but every day I'm kind of just thinking like, am I gonna receive an email back from this nurse manager? Like, are they going to give me an offer? Like, it's a lot of waiting and it's very stressful, but it'll be worth it. And once you find your dream nursing job, and just keep looking. If I were to go back in time, I would apply to the nurse residency program and then immediately send out emails to all the units that I would consider working for, just saying, hey, like, I just submitted my application, I would love to interview for your floor. I would do that like literally right away, and if I don't hear a response from them, then I would follow up like a week later or so. But I feel like actually reaching out to them kind of puts you on their radar and like makes them think, I'm gonna look for this person's application in the pool of all the applications, because there are so many people that apply. Like, there's so many schools within my area, and I feel like there's probably like 1,000 applicants, and I heard that only 10 people got hired. So that is not very many, but there are definitely ways that you can stand out and make sure that you're one of those 10 people. I think other ways that I could have stood out more is like by having a better preceptorship. I think that's why I didn't get selected for the first nursing job that I interviewed for, because my preceptorship was on an ENT floor. The people that got hired on that floor either had a preceptorship on that actual floor, or my friend that got hired on that floor had a preceptorship in the burn ICU, so I felt like that looked a lot better for like trauma. So if you do have a say in your preceptorship, I would highly recommend doing it on a floor that you actually want to work for, and just hope that they're hiring, because again, my floor wasn't hiring by the time I was applying, but it is what it is. Everything happens for a reason. Maybe I'll really like the area that I'm working in. You never know. I like to do new things and I like change, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm just a little bit nervous because I don't know a single soul in that city or hospital, so it's going to be definitely a lot of new things for me and a lot of change, but we'll get through it. Also, I did want to quickly mention that the resume that I used to apply to all of my nursing jobs and the new grad residency program, I actually bought the template off of Etsy for like $4, and I just wanted my resume to look like nice and clean and simple and organized, so I went ahead and purchased this template and just filled in my information, and I feel like it looks really good. So I'll leave a link down below if you guys are interested in it. It also comes with a cover letter template that I use, so whenever I applied to a new nursing job, I kind of used like the same cover letter, but I would change up like obviously the hospital name and then a few things about it to like match the hospital that I'm applying for. Okay, I feel like I've been talking for ages, but that is going to be it for this video. I just wanted to sit down and tell you guys about my new nursing job, and I'm very excited to be starting my new grad nurse journey. I'll definitely take you guys along and make like nurse week in the life videos or any other nursing videos that you guys want to see, honestly. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.